Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Trump spoke by phone on Thursday. The two leaders pledging to honor May's Geneva Consensus on trade and economic issues. Now, ahead of the phone call between the two presidents, China's Ministry of Commerce rebuked Donald Trump's latest steel and aluminum tariff hike. The ministry is urging the U.S. to uphold the rules-based multilateral trading system. Here is what they had to say about the issue.
The United States once again raised tariffs, not only to the detriment of others, but also itself. It will not help safeguard industrial security. It will seriously disrupt the stability of the global industrial chain and supply chain. China urges the United States to respect economic laws and abandon zero-sum thinking. China urges the United States to stop generalizing and abusing the concept of national security. Work with leaders to uphold the rule-based multilateral trading system, address our concerns through dialogue, and jointly safeguard global industrial chains and supply chains.
Okay, joining us to talk more about the significance of Thursday's important call between President Xi and Trump is John Gong. John is a professor at the University of International Business and Economics and a China Forum expert. John, good to see you again. Big day. Economic cooperation serves mutual interest. A stable, growing U.S.-China trade relationship really benefits not only these two nations by supporting jobs and supply chains and whatnot, but really the whole global economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, Sean. I think the fact that this phone conversation indeed took place has great significance for both countries as well as for the entire world. I think, it appears to be a very good conversation. President Trump said that the call lasted for more than an hour, and mostly was all talking about the trade. I think, usually according to the China's customs, a phone like this took place usually indicates that something has already been accomplished by both sides, which culminates in a phone like this at the top leader level. So I would say that, this is a very significant call. I think that, a lot of the thorny trade-related issues have already been ironed out and waits to be confirmed at the next round of talk. And I think this is going to be following the results that have already been achieved in the Geneva talk.
Yeah, exactly, John. And I want to pick up on that because dialogue really does build predictability. And one thing that China has been very clear about at every level at the government is urging the United States to stick to that blueprint, the sort of plan that those two nations hammered out in Geneva. Talk about the ongoing communication, and this is really a way when two leaders talk to sort of tackle anything that could have been lost in translation.
Well, I think there are a couple of issues that are actually very important to President Trump, related to the trade issue. One thing I would refer to is the fentanyl issue. There was actually a conference at Brookings Institute, I think the day before yesterday, where the former ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, made a very interesting statement. He said that before leaving China, he actually had a talk with China's Minister of Public Safety, who is Mr. Wang, a very close follower and co-worker and confidant of President Xi, actually. And he said that, Burns said that China has had to make great progress in terms of cleaning up the fentanyl market. He said that China has arrested already over 300 people related to this. And he said that, we should give credit to what the Chinese government has done in this area so far. So I would interpret this as a major achievement and potentially clean up the way, a significant hurdle, essentially, right, in terms of reducing the tariff. And indeed, 20% of that, there's a 20% tariff entirely related to fentanyl. I think once this is resolved, this whole 20% will be gone.
And then we also have to remember there are so many important issues that these two nations really have to find a way to come together on: clean energy, AI, as well as advanced manufacturing. Is there potential to unlock all of this for growth now and build on that?
Well, I think from China's perspective, in addition to the tariff rates, another big issue that's of concern to Beijing is the essentially the technological sanctions against China, and I think definitely probably I would guess that President Xi must have raised these issues during that talk yesterday. And given the tone of the statements issued by China, I would expect that some of these restrictions are likely to be removed moving forward. The areas you just mentioned, it's not just a one-way street that China essentially is asking for things to be done by Washington, but also there's potential huge areas of collaboration, as you
Right.
pointed out, especially in AI and in other related areas. I mean, after all, both countries are indeed leaders of the world, and President Xi talked about the China-U.S. ship being steered in the right direction, right?
We have so much more, though, really to focus on. It'd been interesting to know exactly what came out of that, but clearly, from a global perspective, many nations, I think, would safe to say, is breathing a sigh of relief that these two, the number one, number two economy in the world, are talking. What kind of message does that send about stability and leadership and reassuring markets?
Yeah, well, I think the current imperative issues with respect to the trade tariffs imposed by President Trump against the entire world, and I think the fact that the two leaders talk and the prospect of essentially reaching a agreement sends a very strong signal to the rest of the world that indeed America is a country that can be worked with. A compromise can be indeed reached after very difficult dialogue, I guess. So I think it's a strong signal that this entire tariff war can indeed be brought to a conclusion through dialogue and negotiation, and eventually America and its trading partners can come out as both winners.
Indeed, as China says, there are no winners in a trade war. John Gong, always a pleasure. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you.